Here's another complete review from 3 days and Tres Noches, and this time we are at the Hard Rock Hotel at Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida. So much different than an all-inclusive Caribbean resort, but we're still going to give you the complete review and everything you need to know before going here. Let's start with transportation. I made a huge rookie mistake when booking my rental car, and I've booked so many rental cars, I can't believe I made this mistake. But when you're going to Universal and you're flying there, you have to fly into the Orlando airport. It's a very busy airport, obviously, because of Universal, Disney, all the theme parks that are there. So getting a rental car can be very difficult. When I was booking it, I was so focused on the type of car that I needed because there was 6 of us traveling. So I wanted to make sure we had a big enough car. And there was only one company that was offering the type of car that we needed. So when I got to the Orlando airport, I didn't realize that it was in an off-site rental car facility. So that meant we had to not only get on a shuttle, wait for a shuttle, and go off-site. It was probably about 10 minutes away. However, I will say it was one of the nicest rental cars I had. It was a Dodge Durango. And I think because of the car shortages that are going on right now, budget, thrifty, dollar, all of those, they don't have the larger cars. So it ended up working out. But just make sure when you are booking your rental car, you know that it's either at the airport or it's an off-site rental place. So I was deciding between an Uber or a rental car because they charge a daily rental car parking fee. But I went with the rental car because I knew that I wasn't going to be going to the parks every day because my children were older, and I wanted the ability to go to the grocery store, be able to run errands without having to get an Uber every time that I went. But honestly, if you're just staying in the Universal properties, you really don't need a rental car because there's lots of transportation and shuttles around, which I'm going to do a whole other video about. Our first impression was really good, especially with the valet staff. We did valet our cars. It was an extra $10 per day, but well worth it. And then when we got inside, though, the check-in process was not very good. I had called several times asking for an early check-in, and I wish they would have just told me there was no possibility because I would have made other plans. They kept giving us hope that it was. They didn't say it was a guarantee, but there was definitely that hope. So we had made plans of getting into our room a little early and then maybe taking a nap and then going to the parks later. Well, we didn't even get into our rooms until almost after 4 o'clock. And so I did have to speak to the manager. They gave us a little discount, but just make note of that you will not get into your rooms early. It's a very low possibility, and plan accordingly. So I'm going to give the rooms between an 8 or a 9 out of 10. It was a typical room you would find in a resort with 2 double beds and a pull-out sofa. It had the bathroom area and then also a mini fridge. I would have preferred a 2 or 3 bedroom, but those rooms were all sold out. Either way, we were only there for 3 nights and the kids were at the park most of the time, so it wasn't really that big a deal. The rooms were cleaned daily and they were fine. We chose this resort because it was the closest one to Universal and they're already doing so much walking. We figured it would be better, and it also offered the Fast Pass. So at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you whether or not I would return to this resort or a different one on Universal properties. So for the food, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, and I'm really rating it on the whole Universal experience. I don't know if that's fair for Hard Rock, but I think it's very typical of a theme park resort where the quality is average and it's very overpriced. We had some great drinks, we had some great food, we had some not so great drinks, not so great food, but everything was overpriced, which is what you expect when you're coming to some place like this. So I didn't expect the food to be anything great. In fact, I'd been there before, so I already knew. They had this place, which was the marketplace in Hard Rock, which was a grab and go, which was a great option, for breakfast and lunch and different things like that, snacks. They also had a high-end restaurant, which we never made it to, very high-end price point. Then they had the kitchen, which we had breakfast. We also had lunch, which again was average. And then they had a poolside grill, which had food. And then you could also get room service. So there wasn't a shortage of places to get food. It's just that the quality was not there. One thing I did love was the fact that you could charge your food no matter where you were in Universal to your room. So I didn't have to give money to the kids when they were at the theme parks. They could just get what they want, charge it to their room. And the same was at any of the restaurants on the Universal property. So we did venture out. We went here. It was in Sapphire Falls at the Stonewater Tavern, which was just tapas, good cocktails, but just average food. And then we went to this really cool rooftop bar called Bar 17, which was 17 floors up. And you could see 360-degree views of Universal. Now, we went there, it was pouring rain, but they had really good cocktails. The food, again, was average, but definitely recommend trying it. And I'm going to actually do a whole separate video about the food and the drinks so that you can maybe be a little bit more prepared when you go. Okay, so for the pools, they're an 8 out of 10. And not only did we have access to the Hard Rock pool, but when you stay at any Universal resort, you can pool hop among the different resort pools. And so I was actually disappointed because I was really looking forward to doing that while the kids were at the theme parks. And I did do that. In fact, I'm going to do a whole separate video about the different pools at the different resorts. But overall, they're basically all the same. And I probably have to say Hard Rocks was the best in terms of entertainment. They had amazing entertainment, and they also had poolside service. But all the pools are very shallow, which I understand as well because it's a lot of kids and they don't want drowning incidents. But because of that, the pool water is warm, and overall, there just wasn't a ton of action. I have to say Hard Rock did the best in terms of the entertainment. And you can just tell that they are a side attraction. The main attraction, obviously, is Universal Studios. So the pools are designed for some downtime, in between time. So it totally makes sense now that it really isn't the main attraction at the resort. At the Hard Rock pool, you could rent a cabana for the day. It was $200 a day. We actually considered it at one point, but again, just didn't see the need for it. They have a fan, but it's not air conditioned. But I could see where that would be great. We saw like a lot of large groups coming together and getting the cabana and doing that for the day. So let's talk activities and amenities. And obviously the main attraction is Universal Studios theme park. So believe it or not, I did not step foot in the park one time. I allowed my kids are older. They went and did their thing. So there is a lot of other things to do as well while staying not only at Hard Rock, but the entire Universal properties. But when you're not at the theme park, what is there to do? So there's actually a lot to do. And one of them is that you have access to all the different resorts. So you can pool hop, like I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to do a whole other video about that. You have access when you stay at the Hard Rock to the other resorts. That means you can also try their restaurants and the different pools that they have. I definitely recommend walking over to Portofino, which is right next to Hard Rock. It's within walking distance. It's a beautiful walk. And you do feel like you're in Italy a little bit. And they have some really nice restaurants, and the pool is nice too over there. And then they have this quiet adults only section pool too. So if you want a little quiet time, that's a great place to go. On the Hard Rock property itself, they did have a fitness center, which I thought was below average. I did try it one day. They did have a kid center. I didn't go there because it's geared towards younger kids. And then obviously they have the pool, and they always have great entertainment, I would have to say, at the Hard Rock pool. Then at night, they always have something in the lobby for you. They had a great guitar player there a few nights. So they do try to have activities on the Hard Rock Resort itself as well. Then of course there's City Walk, and another advantage of staying at Hard Rock is that it's just a short walk over to Universal Studios and City Walk. You can also take the water taxi if you want. But there's tons to do in City Walk, mostly restaurants, but we did go to the karaoke bar one night. It was more like a stage. They really make it seem like you're on stage. And obviously Universal Studios is the main attraction, but they have golf and bowling, movies. They have tons of things over there as well. They do make it very easy to navigate the entire Universal properties, no matter where you're staying. And one way they do that is with the water taxi. And the water taxi is completely free, and it goes from almost all of the hotels in Universal, except for Cabana Bay and the Endless Resorts, to City Walk, which is right next to Universal Studios. However, you can't take the water taxi from resort to resort. So we found that out when we went to go pool hopping. We thought, hey, we could jump on the water taxi and go, but that's not the case. It only goes from the resort directly to City Walk, which is right next to Universal Studios. The other great thing about the water taxis is that they run late. They run until 2 a.m. So if you are one of those late night people at City Walk or in the theme park, you can grab the water taxi back as well. Now, the other way is you can actually walk around the entire Universal properties almost. They do have a walking path, but I think most people are doing enough walking at the theme parks that the last thing they want to do is walk from the theme park back to their resort. But it is an option. We did walk over to Portofino, which was right next to the Hard Rock, which was great. Now, for those hotels that don't have the water taxi, they do have a shuttle that goes around the property as well. And so especially if you're trying to go to the water park, Volcano Bay, you'll have to get on the shuttle and take that over to the water park or to some of the other resorts if you want to go check those out. The shuttles don't run as often and there's not a schedule, so I did find that we were waiting quite a bit for the shuttles, which is why I'm glad we had a rental car. This is where the rental car came in. We actually used the rental car to get to some of the other resorts because it's a huge property and it can take you 10 minutes to get to one of the other hotels, even by car. So one of the advantages of staying at the Hard Rock was that we were able to park in all of the other parking facilities for free. Either we took the ticket that we got and had it validated at the front desk, or we just went ahead and parked in the temporary parking. You can also use the valet service if you're staying at the Hard Rock at both Sapphire Falls and Aventura. So when we went there for dinner, we took the car over and we were able to valet it for no extra charge. I think actually they did charge us $7 or $5. So that was one of the great benefits of having a rental car. And if I were to go back to Universal Studios, I would definitely get a rental car again. Okay, so final thoughts on the Hard Rock Hotel at Universal Studios. First and foremost, this type of vacation is why I prefer the all-inclusive Caribbean resort. But with that being said, Universal has 8 different hotels on the property. So my advice to you is to go to their website and they actually give you a side-by-side comparison of every single hotel and what the differences are. We chose the Hard Rock. One is because the proximity to the Universal Studios. They wanted to be right there so they could come back and forth. Like if they went to the park for a little bit, then come back to the room. That was one reason. The other reason was it included the Fast Pass. And from what I understand from the theme park goers I was with, that's a must. And that alone can cost $80 per person per day. Now, it does not include the Universal Studios admissions. So you're talking like we had 3 people going, it was another $1,000 for 3 days for them to have a 3-day park pass. So just keep that in mind. It does include the Fast Pass, but not the actual Universal Studios admission. Okay, so I actually went to all the different hotels when I was there. I've actually stayed before in Portofino as well. And they all have different unique features. But I have to say, you really can tell that the Hard Rock and Portofino are on the higher end. So if that's something you prefer, definitely think about that. They also have a little bit more extra service. So they have the valet, you can get poolside service, things along that nature. I would say a downside was that I saw at some other resorts, they had a really nice buffet that you could go, more cafeteria style, which is great with kids. This one really didn't have that. You had to either order, or I'll give you some tips later on how to get around that. So would I return to Hard Rock? Actually, I'm not a big fan of the Hard Rock concept in general. This is my 3rd or 4th day at a Hard Rock. I find them to be dark and they're cold and I just don't really like the rock theme. However, I did like that the proximity was there and they were very clean. They cleaned the rooms all the time. They had good entertainment. And for the most part, except for the check-in snafu, the service and the people there were great. But I think next time, if I were to return again, this time I might try the Royal Pacific or Sapphire Falls. I really liked the theme there. I liked the vibe, just to try something different. Now make sure you watch, I'm gonna do a bunch of different videos, but one is on the different resorts and especially the pools and what they look like. So make sure to check that out. But I do have some really good tips for you before you go. Again, this is not a video about being a universal expert or anything along those lines. There's amazing and a ton of videos out there if you're really trying to, get some tips for that universal theme park visit. This is like based on a mom bringing their kids for 3 days and some things that I think is going to help you. The first thing is I wish we would not have gotten that really early flight. One is because I had to drag my kid out of bed and he was so grumpy. And then we got to the resort, we couldn't get into our room early like we thought. We could not get until 4 o'clock. So my advice is, I know you want to maximize your time, but you also don't want grumpy kids with you that are hungry. And so, maybe take that little bit later flight, get there, at the 2 o'clock ballpark, depending where you're coming from. And that way you have time to settle in, you could get something to eat, and then you could get in your room. And the parks are open late, so they still get a whole half a day at the park. The other thing is about the rental car. I know it's an extra expense and you have to pay to park it or valet or whatever, but for me it was worth the convenience of having it because I was able to go to the grocery store, which is the next thing. And you could do that with an Uber as well, but I would suggest getting bottled waters, drinks, snacks, even maybe some cereal or something that they could just grab in the morning, because when they come back at night, they're exhausted. And yes, there is a 24-hour room service, so that's an option, of course, very expensive. But then in the morning, they can just eat in the room and they can go right to the park and eat something there because there's tons and tons to eat. And like I mentioned, I did love the fact that they could charge anything to the room, which I know could be an issue, but I enjoyed it because I didn't have to worry about giving them money. Okay, this one's a big one though. So it rained, it poured down rain, and they didn't mind. They got the ponchos, they were having fun, but their shoes got soaking wet, and we did not bring another pair of walking shoes. So bring another pair of walking shoes because then their shoes were wet for the entire time. I actually ended up going to Target, trying to buy them something that they could wear, but that is a huge tip. Bring a second pair of walking shoes in case you get stuck in the rain, which it tends to rain a lot in Florida. And then the other really cool thing that I figured out when I was there, so their feet are so sore. They're walking, I think he said one time they walk 40,000 steps. And remember, kids don't walk like that nowadays. So their feet were on fire. So we went and got the ice bucket full with ice, poured it into the bathtub, got a couple, poured it and filled it with water, and they just soaked their feet in the bath. So that was an amazing tip as well. And overall, I would say we really did have a really fun vacation. It is expensive, and no matter how you slice it, you're going to be spending money there. But I am so glad that at least my child got to go there one time, and I'm sure he'll go back again. And if you found this video useful, please like and subscribe and follow us on 3 Days and Trace Noges. Well, we keep bringing you on fun, sometimes affordable vacations that you can have in 3 days and 3 nights. You don't need a whole week to have a really fun-filled, packed vacation.